Welcome back, class. This is a fresh pass at Module 2, Communication and Globalization, and I want to give you the full picture right at the start, because this slide is basically our entire roadmap. Look at the map behind me. This module is a practical guide to intercultural communication, world Englishes, and the evolving language of today's global workforce. Here's our foundation. English functions today as the global workforce's lingua franca, its shared bridge language, but it has evolved into many different world Englishes. Notice the emphasis in the corner. Practical application matters more than native speaker norms. Intelligibility and mutual understanding matter more than sounding like a textbook. And local varieties of English deserve real recognition, not correction. Look at that bar chart on the right, evolving language landscape. It shows a genuine shift away from rigid traditional business English toward flexible, pragmatic, modern global Englishes, focused simply on getting the message across effectively. And here's a number I want you to remember. 78% of global teams report improved efficiency when they define clear communication protocols up front. That's not a small effect, class. That's the difference between a team that functions and a team that struggles. By the end of this module, you'll understand exactly how to build those protocols for yourself. Let's start with a comparison that really shows how much the game has changed. Look at the traditional paradigm on the left: a letter, a rotary phone, dotted lines crossing a mostly empty map. Communication used to take days, sometimes weeks, through postal mail or expensive long distance calls. Geographical borders literally dictated how fast you could reach someone. Now look at the globalized paradigm on the right: a dense, glowing network connecting continent to continent with a cloud icon right at the center. Connection today is instantaneous. Cloud based document sharing lets people co edit the exact same file simultaneously from thousands of miles apart. Communication has genuinely transcended temporal barriers, meaning distance in time barely slows us down anymore. This is the world you are entering as professionals, class, not someday, right now, today, probably from your phone in your pocket. Think about it. Your own parents likely remember waiting weeks for a letter from a relative working abroad. You, on the other hand, can video call that same relative for free in real time while doing your homework. That collapse in distance and time is not a minor convenience. It is a complete rewrite of how relationships and how businesses actually function. Now let's look at what this actually looks like inside a real company. This diagram calls it the interconnectivity engine. Three hubs: Europe, California, and China, running in a continuous 24/7 loop. Marketing handles quick queries and cross border collaboration through Slack. The design team runs ideation and project management through Zoom and Microsoft Teams. And manufacturing handles real time problem solving and daily status updates, often overnight from someone else's perspective. Here's the key insight I want you to take from this slide: these immediate feedback loops are not a luxury. They are a direct result of globalization's demand for efficient collaboration across time zones. When your team spans three continents, "I'll get back to you tomorrow" quietly becomes "I'll get back to you in 4 hours," because somewhere in the loop, it's already tomorrow. This is exactly the kind of environment many of you will be working in after graduation, class, whether in a call center, a BPO, or a remote position for a company you've never physically visited. Of course, all this connection comes with real friction, and I want to walk you through three specific points where things tend to break down. First, cultural misunderstandings. The challenge: varying communication styles and different interpretations of nonverbal cues. The impact: a polite gesture in one culture can become ambiguous or even rude in another. Second, infodemics and disinformation. The challenge: false information spreading rapidly across borders through social media echo chambers. The impact: confusion, distrust in public health guidance, and real political manipulation. Third, and I think this one matters most for a country like ours: the digital divide. The challenge: unequal access to the internet, to devices, to basic digital literacy. The impact: entire rural populations excluded from online learning, And from global job opportunities, they are just as capable of doing. Notice, class, that faster connection doesn't automatically mean better connection. Speed exposes new problems just as often as it solves old ones. A message can now cross the world in a second, but so can a misunderstanding or a lie. Here's one of my favorite diagrams in this whole module because it explains so much real life confusion in one picture. Look at the input action: direct eye contact with a superior, your boss, your professor, someone senior to you. Pass that through a Western lens, and it gets processed as attentiveness, sincerity, and confidence. Exactly what's expected in low context cultures. But pass that exact same input through an Asian lens, and it gets processed completely differently as disrespectful, evasive, even confrontational. In many Asian cultural frameworks, indirectness is actually preferred, specifically to save face for both people involved. Here's the insight, and I want you to really absorb this. A student avoiding eye contact out of genuine respect might be misread by an international panel as simply lacking confidence. The input never changed, class, only the lens changed. And meaning, in the end, depends heavily on the receiver's cultural framework, not just on your own good intentions. This is exactly why just be yourself is incomplete advice in an intercultural setting. You also need to know how yourself is being read on the other end. Let's tackle a myth directly. Look at the left box: native ownership. The old belief that English belongs exclusively to a few native speaking countries, the UK, the USA, representing one single correct standard everyone else should be measured against. Now look at the arrow, pointing toward the reality: a global lingua franca. English today has been adapted, localized, and nativized by diverse communities all over the world, each shaping it to fit their own communicative needs. Notice all those scattered shapes across the map. That's not decoration, that's actually representing how ownership has spread out everywhere. So here's the goal I want you to carry forward, class. Shift your focus away from chasing native like proficiency, an outdated and honestly unfair standard, and toward achieving effective and intelligible communication instead. That's a goal every single one of you can actually reach, starting with the English you already speak right now, today, in this room. Let's formalize this with a model many linguists use: Kachru's concentric circles, mapping how English spread historically around the world. The inner circle, or ENL, is where English is the first language for the majority historically established OC, think UK, USA, Australia. Linguists call this norm providing, meaning these countries have traditionally been treated as the source of the correct rules. The outer circle, or ESL, is where English is used for internal communication, alongside indigenous languages usually rooted in colonial history: the Philippines, India, Singapore. This is called norm developing, meaning these regions are actively shaping their own legitimate standards, not just borrowing someone else's. And the expanding circle, or EFL, is where English is used mainly for international business, tourism, and academics. Japan, South Korea, Brazil. This is norm dependent, still leaning on outside standards for now. Notice where the Philippines sits: class nabauka, outer circle, norm developing. We are not passively receiving English. We are actively building our own legitimate version of it, the same way India and Singapore are building theirs. Now let's get very specific and look at the actual anatomy of Philippine English, because I think you'll recognize every single example here from your own daily life. Lexical substitution. The standard word is restroom or toilet. Our localized version is comfort room, or simply CR. Semantic shift. This is where a word keeps its form, but completely changes meaning. Standard to save becomes, in local usage, salvage, meaning to kill, and carnap, meaning to steal a car. Grammatical variation: standard English says turn on the lights. Philippine English says open the lights. And broader usage: instead of the standard send an SMS message, we simply say I will just text you. And that now covers any messaging app at all, not just SMS. Here's the important context. Class. Awareness of these variations prevents severe misinterpretation, especially during international business pitches. Imagine confidently telling a foreign investor you plan to salvage the failing project, meaning to save it, without knowing the darker meaning that word carries here. These are not mistakes to be corrected. They are systematic, legitimate adaptations, proof that Philippine English is alive and evolving on its own terms. Let's talk about accents again. But this time, let's build an actual system for handling them. Look at the input, encountering unfamiliar phonology, and the rule right underneath it, which I want you to underline in your notes. Every speaker has an accent. Do not expect native pronunciation from anyone, including yourself. From there, run the input through three filters. Filter 1, active listening, shift your focus away from how words are pronounced and toward what is actually being said. Focus on the core message, not the surface sound. Filter 2, contextual clues. Use the surrounding words, the setting, and the speaker's nonverbal cues to infer meaning, even when a word or two slips past you. Filter 3, the clarification loop. Politely ask the person to repeat or rephrase. Something as simple as, could you explain that in a different way? Works beautifully and it's not rude at all. Run all three filters and your output is successful mutual comprehension with your professional rapport fully intact. Notice that none of these three filters ask you to slow the other person down out of impatience or to silently give up and just nod along. They ask you to actively work for understanding, which honestly is what respectful listening has always required. Now let's talk register, because colloquialisms create unnecessary barriers for multicultural audiences, and honestly, they can quietly undermine your own credibility. Look at this conversion list. Kick the bucket becomes pass away. Spill the beans becomes disclose information. A piece of cake becomes simple or very easy. Catch some Z's becomes sleep or rest. Hit the books becomes study diligently. Bummer becomes unfortunate situation. And totally awesome becomes remarkable or impressive. Notice something, class. The formal versions on the right aren't longer or more complicated for the sake of it. They're simply clearer, and they travel across cultures without needing translation. Save the casual network for your barkada for your family group chat. Switch to the professional network the moment your audience expands beyond people who already share your specific cultural references. A foreign client, a scholarship panel, a future employer reading your email for the very first time. So, how do you actually build this skill day to day? Here are four concrete steps. Step 1, read aloud. If a sentence sounds like something you'd casually say to a friend, it probably needs formal revision. Change something like kinda a big deal into plays a significant role. Step 2, audience analysis. Ask yourself honestly, is the receiver an international colleague, an instructor, a potential employer? That answer should shape your entire register. Step 3, tool utilization. Use a thesaurus, use a dictionary, to confirm the actual register of any word you suspect might be too informal. And step 4, diverse exposure. Actively seek out international news and let your ear get used to different phonological patterns and different professional registers. 4 steps: class, read aloud, know your audience, use your tools, and expose yourself to more of the world. None of these require talent. They just require consistent practice, the same way your speaking skill improved through consistent practice, one recitation at a time. Let's put the whole module together into one simple equation. Cultural empathy, understanding world Englishes, regional norms, and adapting to localized variations without judgment, plus active listening, decoding diverse accents by focusing on context, on the core message, and using polite clarification loops, plus linguistic precision, avoiding colloquialisms, and using a universally understood formal register for real clarity. Add those three together, class, and you get global competence. The actual ability to build trust and to collaborate seamlessly across the digital divide and across international borders. This isn't an abstract equation, by the way. Every single piece of it is something you can practice this week in your group chats, in your class recitations, in the emails you send to your professors. Global competence is not a distant destination reserved for people who fly abroad. It's a daily habit you start building right here. Let's close with the biggest idea of this entire module. Look at this slide. The student connected directly to the interconnected world with nothing standing between them but the line you're about to build. Effective communication in a globalized world requires more than linguistic proficiency. It demands cultural sensitivity. It demands critical thinking about the information ecosystem you're swimming in every single day. And it demands a steadfast commitment to clarity, even when clarity takes more effort than sounding clever. So here's my closing charge to you, class. Equip yourself to communicate purposively, adapting to the network in front of you, rather than expecting the entire network to adapt to you. That mindset alone, I promise, will take you further than any single vocabulary word we've covered today. You are the student on the left side of this slide. The interconnected world is already on the right, waiting. The line between them. That's the work we've been doing this whole module, and it's yours to keep building. See you in Module 3.